Okay, so good evening, everyone, and those people who are joining us online. My name is Leha Go. I'm the Vice President of the Buddhist Society, and we have Venerable Mataji with us today. Venerable Mataji is part of the subcommittee for who make those amendments to the Constitution. We've also got two other subcommittee members. That's Sam, who's a lawyer, as well as Ananda. So for now, we'll have Venerable Mataji to kind of like go through some of those key changes. And perhaps before we do that, I just want to let everyone know that we did receive some of the members coming to us with questions and proposed amendments, and we are currently in discussion with them. So with that, let me hand over to Venerable.
Thank you, Leha. This is the second information evening that we're having, so we just want to initially go through the Constitution, the proposed Constitution that we've sent you. And it's been quite a large task, but two things really needed to happen. We had a Constitution of about 16 pages for the BSWA, which had lots and lots of good material in it. But we had a 34-page document from the government called Model Rules, which included all of the changes to something called the Associations Act, which came down in 2015, 2016. And the government gave the associations 3 years in which to look at those new model rules and decide on which ones it was going to adopt. What we're going to take you through in the first 5 or 10 minutes is the construction of how we did this exercise, and the Constitution that we sent out to you. We added a second version that was color-coded. So it was color-coded to try and explain to you how we took the bulk of the document from the government's model rules. That's in blue, so on the screen here in front that Nick's kindly helping me scroll through. If you look at the highlighted version, you'll see sections in blue. They are all the items from the model rules that we chose to accept. And in many instances, we thought the words in the model rules were slightly better than we had in our present Constitution, so we chose to go with those. We also spoke to the regulator, and with the regulator we said, look, you know, we're coming at this towards the end of the transition period, and what have other people done who have gone before us? What are the constitutions that have been sent back to you? What do they say? And the regulator said, in most cases, most people had taken all of the model rules and adopted them in their association because they knew then that they would have the protection of the government under law. And they gave an example that when we took over to the 1st of July 2019, the 3-year transition period will have lapsed. And if somebody complained to the regulator and said, look, I wasn't given mediation, I asked for this dispute to be handled, etc., the regulator would go to our new Constitution and say, you didn't put in certain parts of the model rules that we recommended that you did. And in that instance, the regulator has said we would fine for the complainant. So you can see most associations took the model rules almost in bulk. Now, we didn't want to do that in full because we had aims and objectives and powers that was specifically related to the Sangha, how we wish to operate the finances and the like. So the job of the subcommittee was to merge the model rules with the best parts of the present Constitution. So from the present Constitution, then you would find that in black. So if you look at that highlighted version, the blue is the model rules, the black is what we took from the present Constitution. And then we went through multiple levels. So the subcommittee spent a long while looking at the weight of every word and its intent and whether we could offer any improvements. We did that. We gave them to the Sangha, so the senior monks in particular could go through it and said, were there any objectives of the Sangha that needed improving or reinforcing? We gave it to our lawyer, Doug Solomon, who's faithfully helped us pro bono for 35 years. And when the Sangha had finished, we asked that the management committee look at it before that became approved, and it was sent to the members for consideration. So when you look at the highlighted version, could you go to pages 4 and 5, please, Nate? 4 to start with. So an example here in yellow is the additions that the Sangha asked to put in place into this new constitution over and above the words that were in the present constitution. And a very good case in point is C, that the Sangha wanted to be clear that they received donor-directed funds over multiple years for a specific purpose. That wasn't in the Constitution before, but they believe that they are duty-bound to ensure that that donor-directed fund goes to that specific purpose, even if it's 3, 5, 10 years from now. Yeah? So that's an example of an addition that we've made to the Constitution that came from the Sangha. On page 5, we put in sections about guarantees and our ability to offer a guarantee in certain circumstances. On page 6, we extended the definition of the assets we had to include intangible items. So we've built a reputation around the world based on our internet service. So we wanted to make sure that that was included, and that was an asset of the organization. And on page 7, to try and give more support to Ajahn Brahm, we're asking that not only be one assistant spiritual director, but 2. And in the past, the spiritual director would have to give a legal letter to the acting spiritual director to act in his behalf if he was away. The Constitution here tidies up the fact and says if he's absent, the power immediately goes to the first assistant spiritual director, and if the first assistant spiritual director is not available, then it goes to the second. Yep. Okay, page 9. I'm just taking you through the major changes. There was some doubt about whether we had life memberships or not. So one of the last committee meetings that took place before the AGM, a resolution was passed that we have a new category called paid for lifetime, and a member who pays a full membership annual fee in a multiple of 20 times will be designated a paid for lifetime member and will pay no future fees. So we've made sure that we're very clear on that. The sections in the middle, say part 5 in particular, disciplinary action, disputes and mediation. A number of these sections have come from the government and said, look, we've been asked to resolve lots and lots of disputes, but we believe that an association should govern itself. So we've taken almost this whole section without any changes, and you need to be aware, because it's in blue, it's come completely from the government. We think the wording's all fine. We did, I think, improve the odd sentence where it said, if you went for mediation, you should know the result, within 7 days. But there's 6 or 7 pages there that we think will really help the association in future, that we can handle mediation internally, perhaps without going outside. Part 6 on the committee, the government said that there needed to be specific roles, and the committee members owed a duty of care to their members in terms of how they looked after the association. So again, in blue, the government has specified the minimum rules for those positions, which we've chosen to adapt. And on pages 18 and 19, it takes you through how people can nominate as committee members, how they're elected, what their terms of office are, how they resign, and how they're removed. Casual vacancies on page 20. One of the things that's going to be very important is if we happen to lose a secretary for whatever reason, the association must have a new secretary within 14 days. And the government said it will not take the excuse anymore that legal letters weren't responded to because an association said it didn't have a secretary. So it's there under 41.2 that within 14 days after the vacancy arises, that the position of secretary must be filled. You can do that from the existing committee, you could ask it from a member, but the government is tightening up some of the loopholes that some of the associations may have used in the past. Division 4 on page 21 gives more detail and procedure and the order of business at committee meetings, more than there was in our present constitution. But when you look at quorum under section 48 on 22 and 49 in terms of voting, then we've taken the best parts of the present constitution and put those back in. A new section entirely, division 5 on page 23, subcommittees. That came from the government. We thought the wording was fine. We've only started the exercise of subcommittees in this past year, so we were happy to take that. And on page 24, the delegations to those subcommittees and how the subcommittee owns its powers, its duty back to the committee. That's specified under 52. We're almost getting to the close, and we'll take some questions and talk to you about how we want to deal with amendments as well. So part 7 is about how you run a general meeting. That's either the annual general meeting or whether you call a special general meeting. You might remember a year ago we had a special general meeting about the subcommittees, so that's all specified. And we sought clarification from our lawyer under 56 in terms of proxies to be clear that we can only take 5 proxies given to one person before an AGM or a special general meeting. The lawyer asked us to put in a piece that said that the secretary would be duty bound to let that person know if they were aware that they received more than 5 proxies, that they would have to pick 5, but the others would be invalid. So the person giving the proxy perhaps should seek someone else to apply that proxy. The rest of the pages go into the voting at the general meeting, when a special resolution is required, page 28, 61, how to determine whether the resolution is carried. Something the government was finding fault with other associations is minutes of meetings, minutes of executive committee meetings, minutes of general meetings weren't being kept correctly, so they've specified that under 63. And when we go to the last 2 sections, under part 8, there's more detail in terms of financial control. The ability under 65 for the association to invest, but it must do so in the best interest of the association. It mustn't make any speculative or hazardous investments, and it can and should take advice when that's necessary and appropriate. From our old constitution, we gave the right to the spiritual director and any of those 2 assistant spiritual directors that they can initiate an item for processing, but they don't have full authorization. It needs a second authorization by the treasurer or an assistant treasurer. And then lastly, under general matters, 2 things to mention to you. There's quite not a lengthy section, but a long section in the present constitution about the standing orders for the assistant general meeting. That shows the agenda order, how the AGM should be run. The committee agreed that those should be bylaws in future. So they would always be up on the website. They would be available in copies in paper form here at any AGM or special general meeting. And the bylaws here at 67 enable us to do that. We'll ensure that the chair mentions that when this goes to vote next weekend. And then very lastly, the very last item, the concern that people may have had that in some circumstances BSWA could be taken away from us. So with the Sangha, with the management committee, we built in a number of levels, a number of tests that must be passed if this organisation is to be wound up, amalgamated, moved somewhere else. So the first one under 74.2, Nick, is that this constitution says that if it was to be wound up, it must pass to another Buddhist organisation of a Theravada forest tradition in Western Australia. If that test wasn't met, then it is suggested that it go to a Buddhist organisation of a Theravada forest tradition in Australia. If it doesn't pass that test, to a Buddhist organisation in Western Australia. If it doesn't pass that test, go to a Buddhist organisation in Australia. So we built in a number of levels, being very specific what the members see should be the intent of this organisation, that it remain as it presently exists. And there are a number of hurdles that someone who may wish to merge or do anything with has to surmount. Ananda, would you like to say anything at this point? Thank you. Just if you wanted to. Are there any questions from the floor before we want to talk about how we wish to deal with amendments and any questions that we've had?
So just on this part here,
Yes.
If they want to incorporate that, so that for the first part, Part A, they'd have to, could only go to Part B if there wasn't a Theravada organisation in WA. Is that the idea?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And there's some detail behind it. So the regulator in particular wants to see that the members are entirely satisfied with the outcome of this organisation. So what isn't in here is even if the committee got an agreement with the members, it would then have to send a disbursement plan to the regulator, and the commissioner has final sign-off on what would happen to the BSWA if it was merging with somewhere else or was acquired by another Theravada organisation. I mean, we think this is such a low probability, but we put extra levels of security in.
And how would they qualify as being a Theravada forest organisation? Could they just like set it up anytime, or you know what I mean? Or is there some sort of threshold?
They would have to come and present to this management committee. They would have to show their aims and objectives. They would have to probably show something about their financial wherewithal. We would want to see their committee structure. We might want to talk to the commissioner and say, are they properly regulated? How long have they been regulated for? Interestingly, because you're going to this point, one of the questions that we want to put to the meeting next week is one of the members has said, why don't you make a Theravada organisation in Western Australia of a minimum of 100 members? We think that's a positive suggestion that perhaps we should amend that.
Thank you.
So if I give it back to Leha to facilitate.
Thanks, Venerable Mataji. And sorry, we didn't introduce Ananda, but this is Ananda. So Ananda, as I actually mentioned your name earlier and in the last meeting as well. So Ananda is part of the subcommittee that produces these amendments to the Constitution. So we want to thank Ananda, Venerable Mataji, and Sam, who's the lawyer, who's not here today, but she attended the session last week. So, and we have also posted information on the website as well as a video from Ajahn Brahm, which we had earlier on thought we would show on the screen before the start of the session. But we think it was quite a hassle and challenge to have to do both. So we decided that, yeah, it's already on the website anyway, so we can leave our members to kind of like watch it as and when, but we'd like to just focus today's session on explaining what those changes are. And with regard to any questions that you might have, please feel free to email me the questions, and if you think that some of the things have not been worded properly, and you want to understand a little bit more, feel free to email me at vpres@bswa.org. And although I'm not the expert, because the experts are really the subcommittee, I would direct questions to them. And I think they'll be happy to have a call, to have a direct conversation with anyone, or even emails. So I'd like to check again before I close the session if we have any other questions from the people here. Okay, nothing from online as well. Yeah.
So we've had 3 potential suggestions that we're working through. So one of the reasons for having the information nights was that everybody had a chance to look at this, to ask questions, and to put some proposals to us. Now, given the Constitution has gone out, we believe that any questions that people want to put to the members should go to the AGM a week on Saturday. So we're still going to encourage that. The people that put through those proposals, we still want to see that reach the light of day, that it's a transparent and open process. And if people do have a suggestion that needs to be discussed, then that would appear within the agenda when this matter is being discussed next Saturday. So you've got a couple of days, if you would. We'd really like to know where everything's at about a week out. I think Leha can give some leeway till sort of Sunday or Monday if somebody would send an email. And the Constitution will come forward next week as a proposition in itself, and then Dennis in the chair will deal with any amendments and put them to the vote if there are any that needs to be discussed then. So hope all that's clear. Leha's the person to come to. Had lots of support from many people from this. Really grateful for Nanda's help, really grateful for Sam's help. It's your Constitution now, so hopefully you can give it the thumbs up. And if it has the thumbs up next Saturday, then we go to work in putting all these processes in place, which will certainly bring us up to present day law and give us some new processes which we think will benefit the association. So thank you very much.
Thanks everyone, and just a reminder that our AGM is next Saturday on the 23rd of March at 4:30 p.m. and we are live streaming the AGM like what we did last year as well. So please join us, and for those people who are in Perth, we would, especially our full members, we strongly encourage you to attend and yeah, vote if there are issues that we need to put it up for voting. So with that, I'll end the session, and thanks everyone for being here as well as watching us online. Thank you.